Fires one towards the goal. That's going to be gloved by Travis Ridgen. Well, this is more like it.
This is Slangin The Bizkit. Here's Travis Ridgen and Dave Wheeler.
You know, it feels weird to be doing a podcast with you. It's the first time in it feels like weeks I've seen you.
Yeah, I know, right?
It feels like we had like a divorce and we're coming back to mediation and we're back together and we're trying to make things work.
We were on a break.
We're seeing other people. It was better for everybody, I guess. But no, it's good to be back with you. Good to be back for the episode 37 of Slangin The Bizkit, the Connor Hellebuyck episode. Jets just squeaked into the playoffs too, which is great. So,
well, no, Connor Hellebuyck squeaked into the playoffs. That was all Connor Hellebuyck. He made some incredible saves and kept them in a lot of games they didn't deserve to be in. But we'll take it. Hey, there's no pictures on the scorecard. They didn't ask about. You never ask what route did we take in the airplane. You got to your destination. That's all the Jets wanted. They got there. Let's go. Now I'm trying to figure out. We should know by now, by the time this gets released, we should know who we're playing. But as of right now in recording, no idea who the Jets are playing in the first round. Who's your guess?
This is what I would love to see. I would love to see an Oilers Jets playoff matchup. Kings in Vegas, so we can see Quick go up against the Kings again. Yep. And then as far as the rest of the West, I really don't care. I'm really excited for Tampa Bay and Toronto. Unfortunately, my boy Muzz probably is not going to get the start because he had another injury maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. But maybe Samsonov can drop the ball, Muzz can get in, and we can hope for a Toronto first round win for the first time in 20 years.
The Maple Leafs are looking more like the Blue Jays. The amount of times they've had to go into their bullpen for relievers. I mean, the Curtis Joseph even went and grabbed his gear one night just in case things that went awry with the backup goaltender. I
was literally going to ask you that. Curtis Joseph he's got to be like late 40s by now, give or take. He hasn't worn a Leafs jersey in 15 years. This would be his third stint, I guess, with the Leafs. So this would have been a one night stand. But also one of my favorite goalies growing up, the Cujo mask with I don't even know what it was, like a beast with the jaw and the teeth. That was iconic, great style. One of the best, most stylish goaltenders of all time. Also not in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I think he should.
I think he deserves it. Yeah, I think he should be in there. Cujo was great. I'm pretty sure it was a bear. I mean, it would have made more sense if he would have put a Saint Bernard on there because that's who Cujo was. But it's honestly great memories between his time in. Geez, he played in Edmonton. He played in St. Louis. He played in Toronto. Those are the only three. I know he played for probably about 5 or 6 teams in his career.
Yeah, easily one of the most underappreciated best goaltenders of all time. The Game 7 win against the Avalanche when they were so stacked and the Oilers took them out. I think that was 97. And then one of the best goaltenders to be underappreciated of all time, Curtis Joseph, no doubt about it. But
let's not forget Connor Hellebuyck. That's where we started.
Yeah, I would say that. I told you earlier. I think in early winter, maybe January, February. I think he's the best goalie in the league. Like he's the most underappreciated goalie in the league currently. The most viable goalie to his team on basically on how shit the team is and how much they need him. Vasilevsky's a winner, but like Connor Hellebuyck is the man. Also, I still want to rip off his skin and wear it to my birthday party coming up in June. In case you forgot.
Biggest fan ever. I'm not saying I figured out Connor Hellebuyck because I haven't, but I figured out that type of goaltender, and we've seen it a lot. I can't give you other examples, but good goaltenders that play on average teams look really good. Like they look really good. My fear is, let's just say you take Connor Hellebuyck right now without a trade, and you just put him with a Boston Bruins. Bruins are good enough that they're going to win most games. I mean, they set a record this year, but I don't think he's as good getting 15 to 20 shots a game as he is getting 30 plus.
I was going to say he's probably one of those guys that does thrive off the action and off the pressure and the fact that, hey, without me...
Ooh, suck it hard for Bedard. They're wearing those T-shirts in Montreal right now.
Are they actually?
Yeah, there's people walking around saying, suck it hard for Bedard. Better chances of getting Bedard in the first round. His playoffs are done. His WHL reign is done. They got knocked out in the first round by the Saskatoon Blades.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how on earth... If you're the Regina Pats, you have the greatest player in junior hockey history ever to walk the earth, and you can't get a first-round win when you're up 2-0 on the Saskatoon Blades? Come on.
What? That is a learning curve for Bedard. I think he just thought, well, I'll just play the same way I do in the regular season. Hockey's a little different in the postseason. We saw that with the Jets game earlier this week against the Minnesota Wild. refs are getting ready for playoffs too. They're like, all right, we got to start warming up. We're going to let things go a little bit. We'll let them get ref a little bit, and then unfortunately we get some injuries. But I think in the Western Hockey League, that's what you're there to do. Is you're there to learn, you're there to mature. I really hope Connor Bedard takes this as a maturing experience, because if he goes into the playoffs like that when he makes the NHL, it's not going to fare well. Mind you, if he ends up with the Habs, he won't have to worry about that for a couple of years.
I saw a stat the other day. Now, I'm not the biggest Carey Price fan ever. I think he's a world-class goaltender and has been for years, but there's something about him. I'm not like drawn to him the same way that I'm drawn to a Hellebuyck or a Vasilevsky. He just doesn't draw me in. But I saw a stat the other day that in Carey Price's career, he played with one 80-point player. That was Alexei Kovalev in his rookie season. Since then, not one single 80-point player. And to think Cup finals, although it was the COVID Cup, so it doesn't count, but it's still a Cup final appearance. The conference finals against the Rangers, like one of the greatest goaltenders of this generation, considering he did it with basically no support. He just said, whatever, I'll just do it myself, guys. Don't worry. Yeah,
well, and again, I think he was one of those guys that thrived on average teams when he was young. Waited around. I mean, he was a lot like a Steve Yzerman who said, you got to build a team. You got to build a team. You got to build. I won't leave, but you got to build a team. And they finally got one and made it to the conference or the Stanley Cup Finals, as you said. And just couldn't get it done. I mean, plagued with injury. I mean, right after the playoffs were done, I'm like, hey, let's get you under the knife. But it's I mean, there's more guys than not that had great careers that walked away from the game without a Stanley Cup. By the way, do you have a pick for a Stanley Cup winner from each conference?
I'll go Oilers, just because in the West, and then for the East, I'm going to go.
Seriously? After we just talked about Bedard.
The goaltending is horrible in Edmonton. I don't know.
Vegas. It's funny. I'm glad you brought that up. I got into an argument with my buddy of mine, PK, who Fort McMurray works up at the plant, and we were chirping him halfway through the season. Since Christmas, they've had one of the best goals against average as a team in the entire league. Like keeping teams to like 2 goals. Like it's pretty impressive. Like I know on paper it doesn't look like they have good goaltending, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, because they made sure that Campbell wasn't getting into the net anymore. They kept him out of the net. They put Skinner in. Oh, problem solved. Yeah, I saw a stat too that they're giving Campbell, I think, $5 or $6 million this year, and all season long he hasn't up until the shutout that he had against the Ducks maybe last weekend or the weekend before. Not one single game with a save percentage above .905. Not one outside of the shutout against the Ducks. And just kind of to, I guess, paint a picture of, just how poor of a season he's had. But hey, put up a shutout against the Ducks, and who knows? I'm going to Oilers for the West, and for the East, Tampa. You can't pick against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hard to.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I'll go Tampa again.
For a team that just squeaked into third in their division. Okay, I would love to take the Bruins, but they've got the President's Trophy curse on them right now. The Rangers. I think the Rangers are really strong, and it kills me to say it, but Jacob Trouba, man, he has really grabbed that team and made it his own. Picking up Kane at the deadline, he's got some Stanley Cup experience. I like the Rangers out of the East, and in the West, my heart says Winnipeg Jets, but.
Well, Connor Hellebuyck is what your heart says.
Yeah, no, truly. But I mean, I think they rode him really, really hard throughout the regular season. I think sticking David Riddick in for odd games in the playoffs is just not going to do you any favors. So I'm going to go with Colorado to go back-to-back Stanley Cup appearances.
Okay. Speaking of support from your team, got to give a big shout out to the Patreon members. We've joined or added a bunch of Patreon members in the last couple of weeks, and the support has been incredible. And I just want to give a special shout out to everybody really quick, from Mark Alfred, Braden Evans, Rich Silva, Lance Schneider, Gary DeVita, Max Hamrick, Matt Jacobson, Josh Keane, Rich Manzoni, Brian Lopez, Colin Zorian, Rob Henderson, my God, it's a mouthful, Lane Van Wagner, Mike Singleton, Dan Hellebuyck, Ryan, Chris, Cam, Julian, Bimo, Justin Halbersman, Rich C., and Isaac Wellsberg. To everybody who's been a Patreon member, thank you so much for joining. If you're a recent adapter or a day one adapter, the support means a lot. We're going to be, Dave and I are going to be doing a Patreon exclusive episode for the end of the month. So if you're a member, please send an email to my contact info, which you should have, and let us know what you want us to talk about. And that'll be for the Patreon exclusive for the end of this month. And then also we're going to be doing. The goal is to get Slangin The Bizkit sweater. It's just like a blacked out sweater with just a clean text logo done up for sometime this summer. So if you're a member, there's going to be different tiers, but you'll get the sweater for free. And then the collector's edition of the Trav cards are not going to be rookie cards anymore. but it's going to be like a shiny collector's edition of the Motor City card, my Varberg card, card from Flemingsburg, my first year in Sweden outside Stockholm, my VAU days at college hockey, and then the junior days. So all those cards in a nice little collector set, and that'll be a perk for the Patreon members. So finally some exciting stuff coming up on the pipeline. And again, if you're a member, thank you so much for making this podcast possible, because your support is what makes it happen every single week.
The only card I have is my Costco membership card, and nobody's getting that. I don't even have a business card. They don't think I'm going to be working here long enough.
What, Energy 106 for this podcast?
A little from column A, a little from column B. Who knows?
Well, luckily, I don't have any replacements lined up yet.
Well, great interviews. Great interviews, by the way. The last 2 episodes were fantastic. I mean, we were going to try and sneak in a quick podcast record live with both in the studio while you were in town, but I ended up with a couple of sick kids at home and couldn't get out. But I felt like we connected. You know, just we were so close geographically. That was good enough for me.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, I got one of the larger noses in Winnipeg, so I could smell you from all the way downtown. But it was nice to be somewhat close to you, not just over the Zoom calls. But would have been nice to get a in-person episode as we tried to do, but failed to do.
You got
so.
out just in time before that winter storm hit. Holy moly! Like you got out literally just in time.
I did, literally. I came back on a beautiful train trip from Vancouver to Winnipeg. It was plus 15 when I left Vancouver, and I told Victoria, I said, it's like a time machine. You leave Vancouver, I'm in shorts and a T-shirt, and then you go back, and it slowly gets colder and colder and colder and colder until you get out to Winnipeg, and it's like, my God, the air is so dry, it's so cold, it's so dark, it's just awful.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back, and then it's a time machine forward. Back into summer, which is very nice. But
yeah, good to be back doing the show. And I know you got another one in the can. You got another interview coming up here in the next couple of weeks.
Yes. So my boy Liam Sweeney, that I was roommates with in Sweden and then played college hockey with him, he's going to be next week's episode. Reason being is, and I don't know if I even mentioned this to you or not, Dave, but so this week is we're recording this Sunday's episode. So you're listening to this. It was recorded like 2 or 3 days ago. But Victoria and I are doing a little trip to Banff and Jasper, like a little 5-day trip. We're going to be driving to Banff, checking out some of the mountains. We're going to go through the Beehive Trail, Lake Louise, the hot springs, all this kind of stuff, and then up to Jasper, do a little hike around the Athabasca River and Moose Lake and all these other little nice spots. So I'm not going to be around to do a podcast for the following week, so we're going to have Sweeney hopping in to do a little interview, and then Dave and I will return the following week.
You are going to be able to see a couple of locations that Pedro Pascal was at when he filmed The Last of Us.
In Banff?
Yeah, they were in the Banff area, and they actually used my old alma mater of the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, the St. Polytechnic campus, as one of their. I think it was supposed to be in Colorado somewhere. They were supposed to be showing up to a hospital, and they used our campus. It was pretty cool because I mean, literally the streets and the halls that I used to walk, looking like a post-apocalyptic. I'm not going to call them zombies, but yeah, it was pretty cool to see that up on the screen.
We'll get to a little bit of train talk later, but I did learn on my trip back that when they built the Transcontinental Railway, like through the mountains in the late 1800s, for the Canadian Pacific, which is a more southern route, they basically had these old rich white dudes get to the top of mountains and say, we should go that way, and then they blast their way to over there, and then they get to the top of there and be like, that looks like a good idea, and they just keep going until they find their way to Vancouver, and then see on the Canadian National Road, they basically said, you know what? We don't want to do that. We're just going to follow the river. And they follow the river all the way from Saskatoon all the way back around Vancouver.
Yeah, why did they climb the mountain? To see what was on the other side.
And on the other side was an amazing pair of underwear from the team at Sheath.
Great transition. My God.
That is true, though. George Canby, one of the pioneers of the Canadian Pacific Railway, was blasting his way through the mountains. They had the spiral tunnels, one of the big hill, one of the biggest elevations in railway technology and the railway evolution. And at the end, there is a great pair of bamboo mesh technology with a dual pouch from Sheath Underwear. And Sheath Underwear is the best underwear money can buy. And there's a reason that George Canby probably could have used it when he was blasting through the mountains, because it keeps him cool on the hot summer days. It'll keep him comfortable on those cold winter nights. And to be honest, his twig and his biscuits separated, so when they're blasting through the mountains on those hot summer days, everything's not sticking to the side of your leg like a bat wing. You don't want, we've seen enough bat talk over the last 3 years. We don't want any more of that. And you put on an amazing pair of Sheath Underwear, and you support an amazing company founded by a former member of the U.S. military, and Robert. Shout out to Robert. And yeah, best underwear money can buy. What do you say, Dave?
Yeah, well, just like a train. It's got a little hole that you can put your little Thomas the Train through to make sure it's nice and segregated. Just think of the train going through the mountain. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
Right?
incredible.
Yeah. Sign up for Sheath Underwear, by the way, if you use the promo code BIZKIT, BIZKIT 69. You get, how many percentage points do you get off on your first order?
20% off. And that's not a first order. That's every order. 20%. You can just keep using it. Keep using it.
Let's go. Let's go. Use that order every time. There should be a link down in the pod script if you want to check that out. My goodness, I'll tell you. I've gotten at least half dozen of my homeboys all set up on the Sheath Under. Oh, what have you got there? Oh, my. Speaking of things to keep you comfortable.
If you're on the audio version, you can't see this, but you can hear this maybe.
No.
Can you hear that or not really?
No, that is smooth leather right there.
It's a brand new custom set.
Man, those things, like the way you picked up that pad, like you just picked it up with one hand, and it looks like it weighs about as much as a couch cushion. Oh, my, like how light is that?
So
this is man.
So here's hold on, I don't know if you can hear me. I'll pick my mic up for a sec here. But so at my apartment that I share with my beautiful, lovely girlfriend Victoria, who has now started listening to the podcast, so I must be careful what I say again, Dave. Just a friendly reminder.
Yeah, because all those things you said on the old ones are just terrible.
But the mailing system here is horrible. Like the mail slots downstairs, like packages come, they get delivered 2 buildings over. It's just a nightmare. So Brad, who's the goalie coach assistant to Pascal, my goalie coach, has basically been accepting all my packages. And so I had my new Warrior set shipped to Brad's, and he texts me, says, "Hey, the package came. I think that they missed something, or they might have forgot something because it feels too light to be a full set." And then we looked on the order sheet, and yeah, pads, glove, blocker, everything. Everything's here. It's just crazy how light everything is, how nice everything is, and that's not to. And I don't mean to like brag, but this is one of the amazing perks of playing in the Fed Zeno is basically getting like 60% off custom Warrior gear. So
No kidding. I mean, what a great deal. That stuff looks really slick too. It's interesting that you went with white. Now, this seems to be a trend, and what I was told, and tell me if I'm wrong on this or not, but this is what I was told. That's beautiful. The idea of white, it's a very visual, psychological thing. Man, those are pretty. How thick is the leather in the blocker hand there?
no, it's pretty thin. You see that?
That's impressive. Boy, that bread basket looks good there. Holy moly.
I wish you could feel the glove. Like the glove is so light, like it feels like I'm wearing nothing. The blocker's a little heavier than compared to the glove, but the glove is just like nothing. Look at that skate lace pocket. By the way, credit to Ronnie Hextall in the 90s. He's the one who pioneered the first ever skate lace pocket on a glove, by the way.
That's smart. But the idea behind wearing white is, I mean, the hockey game moves fast, obviously. People know that. But when a forward looks up, man, it doesn't even look like it's a. I'm sorry, I keep getting sidetracked here with this beautiful gear from Warrior. Man, it almost looks like the street hockey pads because it's so squared off. It's not as rounded and padded. It honestly looks like floor hockey or street hockey gear that I used to wear as a kid. It's crazy. Technology is just mind blowing, man.
Yeah, if we're gonna be honest, it's everything. Hold on, can you hear me? I better pick up the microphone and stop twiddling my gear here. But so it's very square and boxy, just based on like my specs. Like I like a nice stiff pad, so it's very straight, very square down the middle. It's like there's really not a whole lot of flex like when I push them down, which is nice. But that's just all preference.
Right.
The whole idea, I guess, it's more of a controversy in a heated topic now. But like people say white gear looks bigger. I 100% agree. I had one dark base set, and it was actually my last Warrior set when I played college hockey at VIU, and just I always felt it looked smaller than what it actually was. If I would have had a whiter set, it would have looked a lot bigger, I think. Also, I had a horrible experience and horrible year at VIU, so that's why I never wore a dark set again, which is something that Sweens and I talk about on next week's episode of the podcast. But Warriors just they're doing some really cool gear, really some interesting innovations.
They kicked down the door when they first came in, when they had all of the names and the girls and the sex appeal, and it certainly caught everyone's eye. And then they've really moved into being a front runner as far as gear goes. But back to the white gear for a second. It makes sense. I mean, it looks bigger being white because in fashion they say, wear black if you want to, thin up a little bit. But the psychology, from what I was told, behind the white gear is when a forward looks up at the net, their mind instantly in a quick moment thinks, shoot for anything white inside of the red posts. And that's obviously the back of the net. But if their brain thinks white, for a split second, they maybe think, oh, that looks like the net shoot there, and they're shooting at you, they're shooting at your pads, they're shooting at your glove, your blocker, whatever it may be. But I even thought, why wouldn't they go a step further and kind of put a pattern on the pads and on the gear and on the gloves and everything to make it look like it's meshed behind you?
Have you ever heard of Stomp?
Almost like
goalie
camouflage. Stomp?
Stomp. So Stomp was a company back in like the late 2000s. I want to say Brian Stomp was his name. Basically, he was an employee of Brian's, like Brian's the equipment manufacturer.
I remember them, yeah.
Yeah, so and they're still around to this day, but he got fired and said, I'm going to make my own equipment. And I guess a customer wanted exactly that. So they would take out like netting and put it on the pad, and then the roll would be red to look exactly like the net. And then that ended up catching on. That was the stock model. And Stomp wasn't around for very long. It might have been around, I want to say, for like 3, maybe 4 or 5 years. But that was the actual design. It was just all netting down the front, and then the roll was red just to outline a net. And it was interesting. I remember seeing it at the time. I didn't think it was going to catch on, and I guess it did long term. But yeah, it's an interesting, fascinating concept.
Every advantage that you can get, man. Honestly, every advantage you can get. And speaking of fashion, holy moly, the amount of jerseys that are going out there, all these retro jerseys and the retro reverse jerseys and the home and the away and the warm-up jerseys and the promotional jerseys. And holy man, it's hard to differentiate team from team sometimes when you're flipping through the channels trying to find a game. I don't even know who's playing half the time until I look up in the corner and go, oh, that's Columbus and Calgary. Why are they wearing colors that have nothing to do with their original home jerseys?
Because they're 8th and their 9th jerseys respectively. That's why, Dave.
Crazy. Do we blame Todd McFarland on that one, who came up with that? Remember the drill bit logo for the Oilers back in the day? He is the guy that does the Spawn comics. That I think that's when they started getting. Well, I shouldn't say that. Truth be told, the Montreal Canadiens have made the most changes to their logo in the history of the NHL, but they're so minute, they're so small. Like they close the C a little bit, they open the C, the H gets wider, the H gets smaller. They'll change little colors in between, but just subtle little changes. They don't change the entire logo.
You know what I love the Boston Bruins Pooh Bear logo, like the Winnie the Pooh. I love that so much. The reverse retro this year looks good. I think the real like sport gold honey color yellow one that was awesome. I actually wore that jersey when I played in English River for my glorious 16 minutes. That was the same jersey with a different logo I wore. It was awesome. Minus the 4 goals against I gave up in the first period.
I don't know what they did, but I mean, if you look back at some of the unis, I mean, even going back to the California Golden Seals and the LA Kings when they wore the purples and the yellows. I mean, for whatever reason, maybe it's just the resolution of the footage from back then. They didn't look sharp, but now, I mean, you look at the LA Kings and they're wearing those chrome domes. I'm on the fence about it. I mean, I think like, man, that really stands out, and I kind of think just put on a regular helmet. The traditionalist in me is like, just don't do that.
With the chrome domes?
Yeah, I mean, like it's shiny. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL went with a nice matte purple. I like that. Like it's shiny. I don't know if I like the shiny.
I just like the logos. I like the Islanders Fisherman logo, the Oil Drop logo, the Pooh Bear logo, the vintage Florida Panthers logo. I like that one too. But what about the Minnesota? I like the old. Was it like a bear or like a tiger with the trees in it? I thought that always looked good. That was actually the logo of the Winnipeg AAA team, the Winnipeg Wild for many years. I think they have different logos now, but yeah.
I've always said that a really good logo is one that a kid can draw on the back of their binder when they're bored in class.
I couldn't agree more. But one thing that I did want to mention. So we took some heat maybe 3 weeks ago for the Pride Night talk. And I have a hot take for you, Mr. Wheeler. I'd like to know your opinion on it. I think that Pride Night and every single other promotion in the NHL should be gone, effective immediately, with the only exception being Military Night, and I'll tell you why. Every single promotion they're doing, from Clean Drinking Water Night to Pride Night to every other possible unrelated promotion, has nothing to do with the game. As we talked about before, people are paying money. They're paying a lot of money. People pay $125, $300, $700 for a ticket. I don't think they want to be lectured on what is right and what is wrong in the world. They just want an escape from their day-to-day lives. The only thing that has any relevancy is Military Night. Reason being, the military fought for our freedoms. Without the military, without the brave men and women who gave their lives on the battlefield, whether it be WW1, WW2, Iraq, these missions for the Canadian military, all this stuff, it's impossible. There's no arena, there's no game, there's no freedoms, there's no nothing. So to the military, thank you for your services. Everything we do, including this podcast, is impossible without you. That belongs in the arena, and they should be honored. The rest, get rid of it. Just play the game.
Yeah, but again, I mean, I'll go back to what I said a few weeks ago, is I understand there's some teams that are struggling and they got to get bodies in the seats. And if it means like throwing a promotional night and getting some people that wouldn't normally come to the game in the seats, I understand the reason behind it. I mean, I know a lot of minor league ball teams will do bring your dog to the ballpark night to get extra people in there. And it's just a fun little thing. I understand the promotional nights, but I think they need to be a little more streamlined for the game.
In what sense?
Well, I just think that it has to fit. Like the promotion has to fit with the sport. Like, I'll give you an example. I mean, you want to do a good promotional night? We did one with the Manitoba Moose back in the day where we did retro hockey. We turned the screen black and white, so you'd watch the game in black and white. I put on suspenders and grew a mustache and put on like a po' boy hat and spoke like Foster Hewitt all night long. Ladies and gentlemen, we're up here in section 218, and did the whole and made the whole thing feel. And on top of that, we made the prices for the concession also reflective of that era. So you want to do a promotional night, make it fun where it's still promoting the game. They wore old school jerseys, like they wore the brown gloves, they wore the brown pants, and made it look like as retro as possible. And then the prices, make it affordable. Make it affordable. Like, give people a reason to come down that wouldn't normally be able to afford to go to a National Hockey League game. Go down and say, you know what? Those ticket prices are good. Concession's good. Let's go.
I saw a thing actually today that was popping up that Winnipeg Jets season tickets are down like absolutely like in the shitter. And a friendly reminder, I guess, to everybody that the Jets left once, they could leave again. But I mean, how could you blame somebody when for a family of four to go to a game is $500? What family of four in this economy has an extra $500 to spend on a hockey game, let alone parking, beer, and food, when that's your actual grocery price for, let's say, like your one kid for the month, for your two toddlers for the month? Like it's crazy, and it's.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually covered that on my morning show, my daily morning show, terrestrial radio morning show, which you can catch actually in the podcast version. Just search Wheeler in the Morning. It comes out every single morning.
I'll also mention is the number one morning radio show in the city of Winnipeg. Has been for 20 years.
Thank you, sir. So I covered this in the sports actually earlier this week. And so Mark Chipman, who is he sits on the board for the Jets. He's co-owner with David Thompson, one of the richest men in Canada. The team is valued on Forbes of about $650 million a year. Chipman is doing the biggest drive. The True North Sports and Entertainment, the Winnipeg Jets, are doing the biggest ticket drive they have since 2011 when the team returned, because they are down 3,000 season ticket holders since before the pandemic. Now, that has to do with a lot of things. I mean, you could always say it's the product on the ice, but it has to do with inflation, has to do with ticket prices. I mean, they had a waiting list of about 5,000 to 6,000 people who wanted to get on, who backed away again just because of the economy and what it was. And like you said, putting food on your table is a little more important than going to a hockey game. But he's actually reaching out to the business community, because the business community in Winnipeg only represents 15% of those season tickets, which, according to Mark Chipman, is one of the lowest in Canada. Maybe in the league, but in Canada, of the business community supporting the local team. So he's going to them going, we need your support. And the truth of the matter is, I mean, the Jets have been great for Winnipeg. It's been great for downtown. It's revitalized downtown. It's brought a lot of more people downtown, for a downtown that was really suffering for a long time, and it's still not there yet. It's working on it. But True North has put up a bunch of high-rises around the rink. They put up restaurants. They've put up hotels. I mean, they're really doing good things for the core of Winnipeg. But I don't think you can fight a family's pocketbook. I know they go, all right, kids, down to 2 meals a day. Let's go to the Jets game. I mean, that's one thing that you just can't fight against. So I think it's actually smart that he's going to the business community saying, hey, you guys should be the ones stepping up a little bit more, because we turn around and support you guys right back, especially the ones downtown, bringing people down there to go to your businesses.
I mean, well, like you look from one extreme to the other, from like paying that kind of money for tickets to even like in Winnipeg for junior hockey, where like the Winnipeg Freeze, which are the former Winnipeg Blues. And I remember like when I played junior, and I sound like a dinosaur saying this like 10 years ago, maybe like 8 to 10 years ago. But like junior it was free. Building was free. Some guys get a little bit of extra cash, like a little like $50 a week to whatever, spending money. Sounds almost like the Fed Zeno, if you will. It's almost like they're conditioning us to get ready to play in the Fed. But to now, where guys in the BCHL, where most guys go NCAA out of, they're paying $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a year just to play. Now they're paying for their billets. And then the Winnipeg Freeze, which is basically a pay-to-play junior team that's charging $12,000 a year to play junior hockey, and they get spanked every night. I think when you were reading the sports scores, maybe a week or two ago, and you're talking about how they got blown out like 12-1 or 12-0, and that's like a regular occurrence for the Freeze.
I don't think they even got to 10 wins this season in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. Back in my junior years, which would have been through the mid 90s, in the Alberta Junior Hockey League, I can't remember if it was the Calgary Canucks or the Calgary Royals. I'm pretty sure it was the Royals. Still not 100% sure on that. But it was the only team in the league that you had to pay in order to play. Like you said, every other team in the league either paid you or it was a free ride to play on the team and they'd cover all your costs. And I don't know if it was the fact that they just had so many people wanting to play for that team that they thought, screw paying them, we're gonna charge for this. But it's very odd. But it makes sense if you think about it from a perspective of parents who have put a lot of money into their kids' hockey since they started 5, 6, sometimes even younger, with all of the gear, all of the camps, all of the minor hockey, all of the trips, all of the spring teams, the summer teams, the coaches, the dry land training. And they get to a point where they're like, okay, they didn't get drafted. Where can they go? Well, we can't give up on this investment. Go play junior hockey. Hopefully there's a scout out there that sees you as an average hockey player or an above average hockey player on a bad team. There still could be a chance for you to go to university, Western League, whatever it may be. So the model has been put in place, and I think you're actually going to see more teams asking for that.
Well, there's that rumor too last week or the week before where parents were getting pinched for paying off 20, 30 grand to these Western League teams, OHL teams, just to draft their kid. Here's a 20G check. Draft my kid just for the status of it. Like I couldn't imagine, telling your parents, or like I guess the opposite way around, telling your kid, listen, you're not that good, but it's okay. We got an extra 20K. We'll get you drafted. Don't worry about it.
I think part of it was that, and again, just kind of going with that, we made this investment. We got to go all the way through. Hopefully they develop into a better hockey player. I think also it's possible, I haven't seen any evidence of this, but I think it's possible that because these parents live so vicariously through their kids, that they want to make sure they're not getting drafted to the Sudbury Wolves if they're from the GTA. They want to make sure they get drafted to a GTA team. So maybe they get bumped up, maybe 2 or 3 picks or 4 picks or 5 picks in the third round so they can stay closer to home rather than mom and dad having to travel to Northern Ontario to go see them play. It's possible.
Apples to oranges, at least in my situation. Just be thankful somebody wants you to play there. Sudbury Wolves, yes, it's the murder capital of Ontario, but who cares? Go play there. Just don't leave your house. Go to the rink, practice, get better, and then after 3 years, you can get out of there and go play pro, or go play U Sport, or go overseas to Europe or somewhere. Go somewhere safer, like in the Fedzino, which we'll talk more about maybe in 2 weeks because we've got some things to talk about. Just be thankful somebody wants you to play there. Baton Rouge, where do I sign? Watertown, where do I sign? You want to give me 10 games? All right, just be thankful you're playing because it is a privilege to do so. Speaking of, the headliner for this week's episode is the small endeavor 5-day cup of coffee that I had with the Prince George Cougars back in 2013. So it'll come up on 10 years this August 23rd. I'm starting to feel old, Dave. I really am. I really, really, really am.
You kidding me? You just got surgery. You should feel like a young man again. You can move your hips. You can get out there and get going. Oh, look at all this mobility. You should be feeling like a young man.
I have the range. It's just my body's forgotten how to do a lot of the things, which I first thought I was crazy thinking that. I was like, how have I forgotten how to do a shuffle? I've been doing this for 10 years. And then, my new trainer out at level 10, shout out to John in North Vancouver. He was telling me even yesterday, he's like, listen, your body's forgotten everything. Your body has freaked out from the surgery. It's just focused on getting healthy. It doesn't care about doing a T-push or a shuffle or goaltending. So you got to retrain it. But I am feeling old. And the reason being was this taste that I have with the Prince George Cougars just changed my life in the sense just opening my eyes to the sad business and the reality of hockey. So we have to rewind to, this would have been fall of 2012. Okay. Now in the city of Winnipeg, you had midget AAA and then you had provincial AAA, which now you're not allowed to call it midget AAA anymore. But anyway, so it's midget AAA.
What do they call it now? Under 18, right?
I have no idea what they call it.
I think it's under 18 AAA hockey, I think.
Okay. So this is the level we're talking about. And I had never played AAA before, and living in the St. Vital catchment area, which obviously Dave knows, maybe most people don't know if you're listening from outside of Winnipeg, but I never felt like I got a fair opportunity to try out and play there. And I always thought I was of the caliber to play there. And so then I don't know why, one summer night, I told my mom, I said, you know what, let's just use a fake address. Let's get a fake address. Let's sign up in one of the areas of the city where the goaltending's awful, and I should have a fair shake at it. And funny enough, did that. Signed up with a fake address, never lived at this place, so I don't know whatever mail got sent to this random person, but whatever. And then ended up making.
You should have talked to me back then. You can just get a PO box.
Oh well, now you know. I should have got a PO box. Actually, this might influence a lot of people's ideas for different catchment areas. But so tried out for the team, made the Winnipeg Hawks first ever year AAA hockey. So I'm playing AAA hockey, and then at the same time, for high school, at least in Winnipeg, you have the option in your grade 11, 12 year that instead of doing electives like a special kind of gym, a special math, you could do a trade school, which is where I went to culinary school. So I did a semester of culinary school at the Winnipeg Arts and Tech Center. And so I'm playing AAA hockey while doing culinary arts at the Arts and Tech Center. And I ended up meeting this man by the name of Derry Stevens, like dairy as in like milk, like Beatrice milk. Mm-hmm. And I'm wearing my AAA hockey sweater one day, same kind of sweater like I wear from Motor City. And he says, hey, Travis, you play for the Winnipeg Hawks. I said, yes, how do I know you? And he says, well, actually, my name's Derry Stevens. I'm the the Manitoba scout for the Portland Winterhawks. And I'm like, what is the head scout of the Portland Winterhawks doing at a trade school? And he says, well, the scouting thing is my side gig. This is my full gig. I'm the apprenticeship coordinator. So that alone got me into signing up for an apprenticeship because I was like, I need to talk to this man a little bit more. So got signed up for the apprenticeship. But then as we're talking, we sit down, we have an hour and a half talk. I told him, I was like, I'd like an opportunity to try out for a Western League team next year. And he says, well, why don't I make some calls, see if I can get you out to Portland? I know we got some spots open. A couple of days goes by, he comes back in the class, pulls me aside, says, hey, listen, we're full, but what I'm going to do, and you didn't hear this from me, here's a sheet. This does not have the contact information for every single GM, coach, and staff member in the Western Hockey League. You didn't get it from me. And if you use this, you've used the information on this paper, it will not work. Got it? And then he walked away. So now I have this sheet with every contact piece of every head coach, assistant coach, goalie coach, GM in the Western League. And I emailed every single one of them, and I followed up with a voicemail and a phone call to every single one of them. And of the, I'm just going to guess, 200, 300 emails I sent off, I might have gotten like 20 responses back. Of the phone calls, I didn't get a single phone call back. But I did get one email back from a guy by the name of Kirk McCuspy. Now, he was the head scout of Manitoba for the Prince George Cougars at the time. And he says, hey, Travis, I've seen you play. And he ended up seeing one of my better games of the year that year. And he says, if you're interested and you're willing, to cover the cost, because, at that time, I don't know if it's changed, but it was, you pay the cost of the flight, the hotel, you come to camp. If you make the team will reimburse you. If not, sorry, too luck or too bad, get better next year. And I said, that's no problem. And he says, okay, well, I'm going to get you an invite to camp. So 2 days, maybe a day goes by. Boom, here's an email letter from, what was the guy's name? What's Harkins from the Winnipeg Jets? His dad.
Johnson Harkins, yeah.
Yeah, his dad was the GM or might have been the head coach at the time. Or I think Mark Thompson was the GM and then Harkins' dad was the coach. But so I get the email from them saying, hey, here's your invite to camp. And then the letter comes in the mail maybe a week or two later. And then I'm going to say middle of July, okay? I get a letter in the mail, and not an email, it's a letter in the mail that says, hey, we've actually reneged and taken away this invite. You're not actually coming to camp. And I'm thinking, how do you take this away? Like, everything's been booked. And so I talked to my mom. My mom cancels and books it, or like unbooks everything, gets the money back. I ended up talking to Kirk, the scout, and he's pushing for me like, hey, like you should invite this guy. And I'm emailing the the GM. I'm emailing Harkins. I'm leaving voicemail messages. Nobody's returning my calls, my emails. And they finally said, hey, fine, just come. And I'm assuming it's just like just shut up, stop emailing us, come to camp. We'll cut you after a couple of days. So I ended up going for lunch with Kirk, and funny enough, one of my friends that I went to culinary school with, he actually went to the baking school by accident. I went to culinary school because I thought it was a good way to pick up chicks, and then he went to the baking school by accident. He signed up for the wrong department. He went to go to culinary school. Anyway, long story short, Titan McKay was his name, and his dad, Todd, was the former Winnipeg scout for the Prince George Cougars like 10 years ago. So Todd, me, and my mom go to meet with Kirk, and we're like, hey, like we're gonna do this. Is this legit? Like we're spending a good amount of money to to come out to the camp. And he says, yep, everything's gonna be fine. So fly out, get settled down in Prince George. 3-4 days of skates. A guy by the name of Zach Pacero. He was drafted by the St. Louis Blues. He was the captain that year for the Cougars. Remember, this dude just ran my show. He buried like 4 goals on me in the first inter-squad game, and I'll never forget it to this day. I could be wrong. I think he's playing with the Kansas City Mavericks in the East Coast in the Cheese Toast Hockey League currently. But camp goes by, 3-4 days. I don't have the greatest of showings, and then I remember after one skate, the equipment manager, he comes in with the shopping cart for all the laundry and like your typical IGA Safeway shopping cart. All right, boys, laundry, socks, jerseys, throw them in. Rigid, coach wants to see you. Simple as that. And so they're taking me out with the laundry, I guess. And I go and I sit down with the GM, and the coach, and they basically just tell me, like, listen, like, you're not very athletic, you don't move very well, you're not very good, we're sending you home. Sorry.
Is that the same thing about Tom Brady, by the way?
Well, I guess that's something we have in common, but the story after is where we went on our two separate ways. But previously, maybe like an hour earlier in the day, I had a conversation with the goalie coach, Justin Cardinal, and he had mentioned, hey, why don't we get you playing a little bit closer to the goal line? Why don't we make this change, that change? Try to play some strength, right? Because my greatest asset is my size. And then the GM and the head coach tell me something completely opposite and then release me. And I remember Harkins' dad telling me, have you ever thought of maybe like throwing a tennis ball against a brick wall, trying to get your hand-eye better? I'll never forget that conversation. That was the last thing he said to me, and then I walked out after we shook hands, and then I left. And it kind of opened my eyes to the idea of these guys really don't care. It's just like a numbers game. Like, hey, like we'll invite you, but we're not going to sign you. Obviously, I wasn't a WHL caliber goaltender, never was. But goalie coaches on one page seems interested in trying to help me. The GM and the head coach weren't. Just like obviously I was the ninth man into camp. I was the only guy who wasn't drafted by the team also. So it's like, why are we going to put time or money into this guy when we have guys that we've actually sunken real dollars into? So all that kind of makes sense. But then you fast forward a year later, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was the GM for the Saskatoon Blades at the time. I guess full circle to come back to the Bedard story from earlier. And he ends up calling me and he says, hey, is Travis there? I said, yep, speaking. He says, Travis, I got your email from last summer. It was in my junk box. This is like a year later. He finally got to this, Dave. And so he's like, I got your email. I was wondering, are you still interested in coming to camp? We'd be interested to have you if you're willing to, again, pay for your own way. I said, yeah, not a problem, sir. Gave him, my specifics, my information. He says, okay, I'm going to go, work on this, and I'll give you a shout back in, a couple hours, and we'll get you dialed in for coming to camp. Hung up the phone. I never heard back. To this day, have not heard a single word back from the guy. I'm assuming he went on Elite Prospects and found my information because I just played high school hockey that season and was like, ooh, let's keep Richard out of here. This is not a good idea. But yeah, that was basically the experience. It just was the first eye-opening experience for me that it sunk in. Like, this is a business and these guys are heartless. They don't care. And that's just the way that the hockey world is. And it's come down to the Fedzino, to minor pro, college. It's everywhere. When you start realizing it.
Here's what I got out of that story, and I wonder if anyone else did too, because there's different kind of people out there. But I'll give it to you in a joke that I love. There's a guy who's out on a boat and he gets shipwrecked. And all he has left is this plank to be floating on, and he looks up in the air and he says, "God, please save me. Please save me." So he's laying on this raft for like a day and a half, and all of a sudden this small sailboat shows up. Says, "Hey, do you need help?" He goes, "No. God's going to help me, but thank you." Sailboat moves on. "God, please help me." Day and a half later, a bigger boat comes by and says, "Do you need help?" He goes, "No, God's going to help me." So the boat moves on. The guy dies. He goes to heaven. He meets God, and he says, "God, why didn't you help me?" And God says, "I sent you 2 boats." So the idea is there's some people that ask for an opportunity, and there's some people who go get the opportunity. And what I hear from your story is that you went and got the opportunity. There's some people that just sit there and wait for it to happen and say, "Well, it's going to happen, it's going to happen." No, you don't wait around. If you see an opportunity, you pounce on it and you get it, and you are persistent. And that's the reason why you got these opportunities, and it is why you are where you are now.
Well, and it's just adding to the resume of experiences that I've had of like, okay, this is a business. Maybe we were more aware of this, or like this has kind of shaped my perspective on things or my outlook on, opportunities coming forward in the future. But I take a little bit of shit on this because like I'm not like a hardcore Christian, but like I am religious, and I do believe that God helps them who help themselves. And like you just mentioned with the guy waiting for, some savior, God will only help you if you're willing to help yourself. He sent the boat, he sent the raft, he sent the SWAT team and everybody to come look for you. And you said, it's okay, I'll find another way. If you can't help yourself, who else is going to be bothered to help you, right?
Bingo. Exactly. How are we looking for time here? It seems like the sun's getting real low.
we got about 10 more minutes to cap off on a couple things. One thing I did want to talk about, and this we missed in the last episode that we got in on time, or that we were recording together, was Kurt Cobain, 29 years ago, as of, I guess, last Friday, on April the 8th, 1994, the 29-year anniversary of his suicide, of his passing. I actually ended up going to Seattle to the house. Now, I went to
Aberdeen, Washington, yep.
So, well, that was where he was born. I went to his house on 171 Lake Washington Boulevard East in Seattle, the chateau-style mansion that was built in 1904.
The one the one where he lost his life, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the one. So I went there for the first time in 2019 for the 25-year anniversary. And my girlfriend at the time and we went down and just kind of checked out some, so the Nirvana exhibit they had at the Seattle Arts Museum, and then saw the house and all that kind of stuff. But I remember approaching the house. And like when you peel around the corner, because it's a very like windy, bendy area down Lake Washington Boulevard, and when you come around the corner, you look over the gate and the trees kind of clear, and you see this house. I just remember getting this like eerie like there's like a ghost or something watching me feeling. And then obviously, we parked the car, I walk up the to the hill to the park, and you can see the house. But the greenhouse where he committed suicide was torn down, so he killed himself in '94, and then in '97,
jury's still out on that one, but continue.
We have our opinions, but what is a fact is that the greenhouse or the garage where he lost his life, I guess we can all agree on that, was taken down in '97 by Courtney Love. So the greenhouse is gone, but there's just this blank, empty space that it is painfully obvious that was a garage. And I just remember getting this like really eerie feeling, seeing it like there's a ghost or something.
I wonder why somebody would get rid of a room. It's almost like they're trying to get rid of the evidence. Huh.
Leave a comment down below. What do you think? But so fast forward to this past Friday. So Victoria, me, and then her parents who were in town. Shout out to Jay and Sonia. Jay listens to the podcast every week. We love him.
Hi
Jay. So we went down to Seattle. We went to go see the house, and I didn't mention anything about like the eerie feeling. Like I'd mentioned to Jay and Sonia and Victoria, but like, hey, like this is the situation. He died, etc., etc. And Jay says to me, and Victoria said that like you just look at the house, you get like this eerie feeling, like something looks kind of spooky. It's like right like a Twilight movie. And I said, so you guys feel that too? They're like, yeah, I kind of feel that weird energy. And they're not hardcore fans like I am, where I'm getting like a psycho, getting my goalie mask painted with Kurt Cobain, artwork and scriptures and all this kind of stuff every single year for the past 5-6 years. Like they're just like average, people that know of Nirvana. And so it got me thinking, like, I think there's a spirit living in that the space where the garage was, or that old chateau style house. Like it's very. Have you ever been to the house, Dave?
I've never been to the house. No. It's that's my Graceland. No, if I'm ever in the hood, I'm definitely going to swing by. I've seen numerous documentaries on it. I'm very familiar. I can close and see it in my mind's eye with the stairs that are going up, kind of like those not spiral staircase, but the ones that kind of go up to the landing. Yeah, it's a beautiful property. Beautiful property.
We should go down next year for the 30-year anniversary of his death.
You had me at Cobain.
But anyway, I just wanted to just talk about that story. Also, the Seattle Kraken, their goal song is Lithium. I like it, I'm not going to crack. I love you, all that kind of stuff. It's a great vibe in there with the Climate Pledge Arena, whatever they're calling it. But I know you're the music guy. You got anything to say about just the art, the music, the composition, the structure of Kurt Cobain's songwriting and being one of the greatest lyricists of all time?
I've told this story before, and you're going to have to forgive me if I've told it on this podcast before, because I've told it numerous times, but I remember vividly the day that he passed. We were on a road trip. We were in St. Albert, just outside of Edmonton, which is basically now a part of Edmonton, but it was a suburb of Edmonton at the time. And there was a girl that I used to go to school with that moved down there, and so we had an afternoon game, and so in the evening I went to a payphone at a Smitty's restaurant. I said, hey, is Leslie there? And they said, sorry, she's not taking phone calls right now. I'm like, oh my God, is everything okay? She's like, no, she's pretty beat up about Kurt Cobain dying. And I said, excuse, and keep in mind, this is before the internet and hadn't even hit the paper yet. I'm pretty sure she saw it on Much Music or whatever, and our Canada's version of MTV. And I said, what? And she goes, yeah, Kurt Cobain killed himself. Jury's still out. Killed himself. And I was like, wow. And it was weird. And so I hung up the phone and I had to go back, and I remember it vividly. And it's almost kind of weird for what I do now as far as my industry, doing music and reporting on stuff, that I had to go back in front of my entire team and announce to them the news that Kurt Cobain was dead. I mean, keep in mind, most of the Discmans that were being listened to in the bus on the road trips and whatnot were usually the newest Nirvana, like In Utero was passed around a lot. I mean, there was probably 5 copies, and once you were done with it, you passed it around to another guy. Through your Discman, guys would be sharing headphones and listening to the panning of songs like Rape Me and whatnot, where the guitar is on one side and the lyrics were on the other. So believe me when I tell you, that was played in the dressing room a lot. And to go back in front of all those guys, and some of them in disbelief, like, Wheels, you're such a joker. And other guys, literally, you could, like my best buddy Jensen, who's one of the biggest Nirvana fans I knew, you could just see his rib cage like kind of cave in, and like he just felt crushed, like he knew it right away. And to have that vivid of a memory, it was just very, very eerie and very odd in a generation before social media and the internet or whatnot. So Yeah, believe me when I tell you that that band and Dave Grohl. I mean, I was a drummer at that time too. I played drums in a high school band. I played drums in band class, and so Dave Grohl was the epitome of drummers for me. And I've continued to follow him throughout his career. So yeah, that band had a massive impact on my adolescence when I was growing up. So I was half kidding about the whole "That's My Graceland" thing, but believe me when I tell you, I would love to go visit that property and just kind of see all the place. Even out to Aberdeen, I had a friend that went out and saw his boyhood home in Aberdeen, and people are still willing to let you go walk through the house and whatnot.
I found crazy too, just how, like, watching the documentaries and the films that are out about him, how he was able to touch the youth and the teens at that time, just about like this universal truth of, you know, how confusing life is and life sucks, life ain't fair, all this kind of stuff. And then, you know, obviously he killed himself, as you say, the jury's out, but I have my opinions. April of '94. I was born June of '96. There's a 2-month gap in between his death and me being born, but it still resonates like as if he was here today. And just like listening to the music, watching the interviews, just how he spoke, the way I guess he thought, or at least that he would appear on camera, just resonated with me and always has, and changed my life.
One thing you got to remember about Kurt too is, I mean, as much as he's looked at as like this depressive, angsty, speaking to the generation, dude was actually really funny. Like, he was a really funny dude. Like, Grohl's got a lot of great stories about some of the fun they used to get into and the fun they'd have on the bus. And, they had some dark times and whatnot. But dude was actually a lot funnier than he's given credit for.
I love the opening line he had for MTV Unplugged, which obviously, as you know, opened up a whole realm of MTV Unplugged with, Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, all these kind of unplugged events, Pearl Jam as well. And the opening line was, "Good evening. This song is from our first album. Most people don't own it."
Yeah.
Like, no, what a line to open. And like, yeah, exactly. Like you said, Bleach, nobody owned it. But also Incesticide, you quizzed me on this maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
But some incredible songs on there.
Good B-side album. I still remember when Silverchair, that grunge band out of Australia, came out, the way they promoted it was, they've sold more records than Nirvana's first album. It's like, yeah, I sold more records than Nirvana's first album. Everyone sold more albums than Nirvana's first album. Posthumously, sold like crazy. I think it went platinum a couple times over, but at the time nobody had a clue. And I think the difference was Chad Channing, who was the original drummer, moving on to Dave Grohl, that really kind of gave it that flam kind of disco feel to it and just brought the band to what it's what Kurt was looking for. And keep in mind, Pat Smear was also a member of that band. He was brought in. Kurt always said that he saw it as a 2-guitar band, and Pat Smear just came in a little late in the incarnation and never gets credit for actually being a member of Nirvana.
And rounding out that full sound. I will say, I think Kurt Cobain's greatest performance, not on MTV Unplugged, Saturday Night Live of January of 1992, where he overdoses on heroin. He's knocked out. They give him some Narcan to kind of bring him back to life, and he delivers quite possibly the greatest performance I think that I've ever seen of Smells Like Teen Spirit and just of his career. The vocals, the guitar solo, just Dave Grohl hitting the drums like he's like the drum kit owed him money or something. And just an amazing sound, amazing performance, and just again a band and an artist who changed my life. And just rest in peace. 29 years later.
Always love that we finish on music more often than not.
I do as well. It's it's what you do for a living. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show to talk music, because you have a lot more knowledge than I do.
Good to be back. I missed you.
I missed you as well. We're off next week, so again, just a little reminder that there will be no Dave and I next week. It's going to be a pre-recorded episode with Liam Sweeney, because my beautiful girlfriend Victoria and I are going to Banff and Jasper for a couple of these. By the way,
enjoy the time.
Just a little fun fact before we cap off here: the Banff Fairmont Springs, which is the huge castle in the Rocky Mountains, $1,200 a night for slow season. For a night in that hotel. How crazy is that? It's almost as expensive as playing for the Winnipeg Freeze. 10 days at the Banff Fairmont Springs will get you one season with the Winnipeg Freeze.
Take all of the free shampoos that you can in your bag on the way back.
Croissants, fill your pockets full, and if you got an extra flip-flop, put that extra coffee, get that cup of Joe Strong, get it hot, and take everything that's not nailed down. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Slangin The Bizkit. We do a new episode every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. That's 10 in Winnipeg, 9 in Calgary, 8 in the West Coast, and across the different time zones in Europe and into Asia. I'm Travis Ridgen. I play goal for the Motor City Rockers on number 33. I'm joined by Mr. Dave Wheeler, the number one morning show host in the city of Winnipeg. We thank you for listening and look forward to seeing you next week when we come back for episode 39, the John Graham episode.
Sure. Don't spoil it. You can find a better one.
I'll work on it. We'll see you then.